Let's talk about this book, John, because it really struck a chord with me, creativity, because when I grew up, I felt like I was given a decision. This is in the 70s in California. You're either a creative artist type or you're a, scientist type. And I chose the science route. And I was the science guy and the computer programmer and the engineer at MIT. And I always thought that creativity was for someone else, but it's only in the last 10 years since I've been doing this show that I realized, wow, I actually can tap into a lot of creativity in my head. And then there's a lot of that in here and a lot of unconscious thinking that goes on. Tell me how you came up with these ideas, John.
Totally, because I had an experience like yours. The difference between my experience and your experience is that the creative option was never there. The education I received, which was a good English education, prep school and public school, and I did Latin at the age of 8 and can still remember a lot of it, and I'm okay at maths and all these kind of things. I discovered early on that you seem to get more money for maths and Latin than you did for anything else. So I sort of became good at those and not very interested in anything else. But the whole way through, I was just being ever so gently told that I had to be right about things,
Yeah.
That's Peter Ustinov made me laugh once. He told me he'd once taken an exam and said, name one Russian composer. And he'd said Rachmaninoff. And the teacher said, no, it's Tchaikovsky. And that's sort of got education in a nutshell. And when I was 15, I was asked to write an essay on time. And I'm quite proud of this in retrospect. I wrote the whole essay about the fact that I'd not had time to write the essay. You see, now you smile or not. It's quite nice, that, isn't it?
Yes.
But you know what the teacher said? He said, John, this isn't a proper essay. So it was never drummed out of us, never beaten out of us, the creative side. It wasn't the slightest bit encouraged, and it didn't get you marks.
Right.
So what I discovered, I got to Cambridge, I got in on science, like you. I had no idea that I had any creative ability. I joined the Footlights, which is like the Hasty Pudding at Harvard, and we used to get together in the club room. And I joined them because they were the nicest bunch of guys at Cambridge, because they all had a good sense of humor and they didn't take themselves too seriously, whereas the straight actors... What a bunch of wankers. They knew they were going to be huge Shakespearean stars, and they would talk about things like motivation, which frightened me. But this bunch was funny, and I found I could write stuff that would make people laugh.
Okay.
Which is creative. I had no idea I had this ability at all. And I went on developing it. And because it didn't come naturally to me and no one had told me I was creative when I was 8, I watched it and I was very puzzled. I would work very hard at night trying to finish a sketch and I couldn't finish it. And in the morning, I'd wake up, make a cup of instant coffee and sit down at the desk, and suddenly the solution was there.
Right. And that's some of the IP that you put in this book, as far as to allow your unconscious mind to solve the problem, but also to give it time, right? We're taught in school.
Give it time. You see, every time you try and rush it, you go back into stereotype thinking. Right? Every time you rush it. This takes some time to explain, but there was a guy, I always forget his name, Donald Hebbs. He was a Canadian neurologist, and he said, when neurons fire together, they wire together. In other words, if you use the same thought path on a regular basis, it sort of becomes more than a path. It becomes a wire. The only way you can go down is to go down the wire.
Yeah.
So what you've got to try and do is get out of your normal stereotypical way of thinking. And somebody said, well, it's like you take a little house for the summer, and when you arrive there, the grass in the back garden is 4 foot high. And there's a shed over there. So you want to see what's in the shed. So you push your way through the yard and you get into the shed. When you come back, you come the same way, don't you? Then the next day, you're going to go to the shed. You're going to go this path you're slowly forming. And eventually that's what happens with our thinking, is we just always go by the same path. But of course, we went off the path. we might not get to the shed so fast, but we might find something that we don't know about in the grass. And that's what creativity is, getting out of a rut. We're all, that's what it is. It's sort of mental rut. And in certain circumstances, but they are circumstances when you can be playful and when you're not under pressures like time pressure in particular, or feelings of inadequacy. I can't do this. This is much too difficult. You have to get rid of all of that. And then you can play, and kids could play. They know how to play, but we kind of slowly educate it out of them. Not cruelly, but just by not encouraging them.